Welcome to the Political Checkmate, and today I'm going to checkmate this Vox video called Who Pays the Lowest Taxes in the US? So here we go.
These 10 people represent everyone in America. This person on the left, she represents the poorest 10% of Americans. And on the right, he is the very richest 10%. So let's ask this group a simple question. What percentage of your income gets taxed? Most Americans pay multiple income taxes to the federal government and state governments and local governments. But a recent analysis by two economists added up all the income taxes. And when you do that, the data shows that poor people pay a very small part of their income to the government, and rich people pay more. This concept of taxing the poor at a lower rate and taxing the rich more, this is called progressive taxation. It's how taxes work in most countries. But it's also why some critics question whether these people are getting away without paying their fair share.
The middle class and the poor that pay, if anything, a lot less.
Why is it that 45% of the population of this country is not contributing back to the rest?
But now let's add one more guy to this group of 10. This guy, he represents the 400 richest Americans, billionaires. Billionaires don't make most of their money through typical income, so their income actually gets taxed at lower rates than these less rich people. Now you might be thinking, don't billionaires pay taxes in other ways? And the answer is yes. This is just the income tax, and there are lots of other kinds of taxes in America. And this analysis, where this data came from, it looked at all those taxes. And it shows that when we add them all,
First off, there is no such thing as a fair share because a fair share is completely subjective. After all, if you were to ask a progressive how much the rich should pay in taxes, they might say 70% or something very high. While if you were to ask libertarians how much the rich should pay in taxes, they would say 20% or lower, or even zero if they are an anarcho-capitalist. Anyway, the research that Vox is citing has been responded to by multiple economists. They point out the many flaws in their research. Here are some problems I am seeing right now. One of the biggest problems is that Say's and Zuckman's analysis removes refundable portions of tax credits, such as the Earned Income Tax Credit and the Child Tax Credit that many organizations use when looking at the distribution analysis of taxes, such as by the Treasurer, Office of Tax Analysis, the Joint Committee on Taxation, and the Tax Policy Center that would have included in income. When removing these, they would overstate the tax burden for the bottom. Second problem I see here is this response by economist David Splinter, who point out the problem in how Say's and Zuckman's got the estimates for income. It suffers from three problems being the allocation of unreported income, the allocation of retirement income, and the definition of income. I would recommend you to read this paper for more information.
add these back onto the income taxes, and it looks like the rich really do pay way more than the poor. But now let's talk about another tax. This one's buried in your pay stub. Look closely and you'll see something called a Medicare tax and a Social Security tax. Sometimes pay stubs call them FICA. Anyway, combined, these are called payroll taxes. Medicare and Social Security are two really important programs. They provide healthcare and a modest income for when we get old and retire. But they're also expensive, which is why we have these payroll taxes separate from the income tax to pay for them. So on your paycheck, you'll notice that you're taxed 7.65% in payroll taxes, and your company is supposed to pay another 7.65% on your behalf. But economists have found that in practice, the way companies pay their part of the payroll tax is by just paying workers less. So in reality, many workers pay nearly the full 15.3% toward this tax. And everyone is on the hook for the same percentage. But the wealthy? Once someone earns more than about $130,000 a year, the money they make beyond that isn't subject to the Social Security tax. It's capped. That means the rich pay a really small portion of their income toward payroll taxes, and poor people in the middle class pay way more. Add payroll taxes onto this chart, and it starts to flatten out. The last type of taxes we're going to look at are the taxes we pay when we buy stuff. For example, let's say you're looking to buy a t-shirt. When you check out, you pay a sales tax, which is a percentage of its cost. And sales taxes apply to most things: furniture, toilet paper, laundry detergent. For some items like beer and gasoline, there are additional taxes that get incorporated into the price tag before you even get to the store. These are called consumption taxes, and we all pay the same rate on the things we buy, regardless of how rich we are. Now, you might think that since rich people usually buy more things and more expensive things, they pay a larger percentage of their income toward these taxes. But relative to how much money they have, the stuff they buy and the taxes they pay on that stuff take up a relatively small portion of their income. Meanwhile, everyone, even people with almost no money, needs to buy certain basic things to survive. And for poor people, those basic things and the taxes that come with them cost them almost everything they earn. So if we chart how much of their income each of these people pays in consumption tax.
So on payroll taxes, my response is that payroll taxes are actually progressive because the money that is used from payroll taxes fund progressive things like Social Security, which it redistributes progressively according to the CBO, and for Medicare, it is progressive according to this study from health economists in the Journal of Public Economics. I also want to point out that Social Security payments for retirements are also capped, while on sales taxes, the way Says and Suckman did their estimate is problematic because people's spending habits change because these people could consume a small share of their income for retirement, and when they retire, they may end up paying significantly sales taxes. A better way of measuring the sales tax burden would be to place the burden based on taxpayer income, kind of like what Says and Suckman's 2018 paper did, which found a 5% effective sales tax burden on the bottom 50%, and a 4% effective tax burden on the top 1%.
We can see that poor people pay a much larger portion. When we put these taxes together, suddenly we see a big change. The chart shows us that this line from before is a lie. That America's tax system as a whole isn't very progressive. Instead, it's mostly flat. Poor people pay about the same portion of their income in taxes as rich people. And this guy, this billionaire, is paying a smaller portion than everyone else, even the poorest. If you just look at certain types of taxes, it's natural to assume that rich people pay a bigger tax burden in the US, and that poor people aren't exactly paying their fair share. But a more complete look at the bigger picture challenges that. And it suggests that if we're looking for a group that isn't paying their fair share, we might be looking on the wrong end.
So this now begs the question, is the US tax system progressive or regressive? My answer to this question is that the US has a progressive tax system because multiple independently scholarly sources have found that the US tax system to be progressive, such as the CBO, the Tax Policy Center, the OECD, the Joint Committee on Taxation, the US Treasury, and Austin and Splinter, and also economist Jason Verman combined data from the CBO and the IETEP and found that taxes are in fact progressive. This is the end of the video. Thank you for watching, and please donate to my Patreon so I can make more videos and have your video requests checkmated. And thanks for watching, and have a nice day.